My name is Clothier, and this is my capstone. All right, so I'll start with the thought process. I started thinking about what I wanted to do for my capstone around my sophomore year of high school. And at the time, I knew it was either something that you love to do, something that you thought you might do later in life, or volunteering. And so I started with something that I thought I loved to do, and soccer was obviously the first thing that came to my mind. So at first I thought maybe I would want to try helping run some soccer camps and then maybe go on a mission trip or something. So that was my first thought, but as time went on and my schedule started building up, it just turned out that I wasn't able to do that. And so then I thought of what maybe I could do later in life. So I thought about interning or shadowing an accountant at some big corporation. I thought Pilot Corp, because that's where my dad works, I could get good connections. But something in me just didn't feel like that was what I really should do. I can't really say what it was, but I just decided not to do that. So I was talking to my dad one night, and he said that he knew someone at one of the YMCAs in Knoxville, and they were struggling for help, and they could really use some help. And he said, he could probably help me out, and they could probably get me a job there and I can help out there, whether it's in the garden or whatever. And so I took some time to think about it and decided that's what I wanted to do. So some of my fears and expectations, I'll start with my fears. One of my biggest fears was communicating. I am a very introverted and shy person. I always have been. And so always talking to people all day long is not typically my forte. And the Y is a very outgoing, bright organization that is very involved with their clients. And so that kind of intimidated me going into this because, like I said, I'm very introverted. My next concern, after I got in there, I decided to work reception in the garden. But for the garden, I was just volunteering, and to be honest, I know nothing about gardening. I've never done anything with gardening before, so I was basically just going in to learn, and the thought of learning everything was very intimidating because you have to make sure you do everything right or plants die, and then that hurts everything. So that was kind of intimidating going into it. My coworkers also, I was afraid that I wasn't gonna mix well with them because I'm just the outsider. I'm still in high school, just doing a project, so I was just afraid they wouldn't really accept me very well. All right, so now my expectations. Honestly, my main expectation was to learn. I was very eager to learn the business side, working on reception with managing accounts, managing the money, helping get money from one place to another. That's something that interests me for later in life. And then also just working on skills I need to improve. Like I said, I'm a very introverted person, and I need to improve that skill because that's a skill everyone needs for later in life, no matter what job they take. And so even though talking isn't what I typically would like to do, I felt like this was the right thing that I needed to do to help improve. All right, so what is the Y? The YMCA, it stands for the Youth Men's Christian Association, which it really isn't that anymore, but it's a nonprofit organization and they go, and it's a workout facility. There are pools, basketball courts, gardens. The gardens is one of the main things that the Davis family Y is known for, because all the food that they produce goes to food banks around Knoxville, and so they just try to help out everyone in whatever way they can. All right, so what I did, I alternated between my days working in reception and working in the garden. And so on the reception side, I would stand at the front desk, greet people when they come in. I would help manage their accounts, get them checked in, if they needed to cancel memberships, add memberships, you name it. Adding swim lessons, that was a big thing since I did this over the summer, and managing the money, getting it from them to farther in to the system. I had to help with that. And so for the first couple weeks, I kind of just sat back and watched and just let them kind of teach me, but eventually I was able to get in there and start doing it myself, which is really nice. And part two, I would alternate, so on the other days I would be in the garden, and I would basically be doing whatever I was told. We would always go through our daily routines, And so basically I was just there to help whatever they needed. And so like I said, with reception, I helped work with accounts and money and all that good stuff. And I got to meet a lot of awesome people while doing it, which I really enjoyed. So yeah, I already gave you all the main description of what I did there. So this is the garden. There are a couple pictures. That's the main area. This is kind of the back, and this is actually a chicken coop, which I'll talk about that in a minute. So basically, the garden in the back, really, they grow most anything and everything. Things from tomatoes to grapes to watermelons. Honestly, just depending on the time of year, just depends on what they grow. And so they maintain it all year long. And so I went back there, and we would have a set routine that we'd have to do specific things every single day to maintain the garden. The things that we're growing, like cutting off dead plants, anything that's diseased, we had to make sure we got rid of those. Got rid of any bugs trying to eat away the plants, picking tomatoes, peppers, just anything we could harvest, we would weigh that, and so we would wait till we get the proper amount so we could send it to the food banks. And then also with the chicken coop I mentioned earlier, they have 6 female hens that they keep back there that produce eggs, and those also go to the food banks. So I would have to do things like keep the compost up, cut up like old stuff and put it all in there, feed them, corral them sometimes. So that was always an interesting part that I didn't really expect. But it was a big learning experience of something that I wasn't particularly familiar with or comfortable with. And I also got the volunteering aspect, which was nice, and I liked having that feeling of volunteering. All right, so I want to talk about some of the people that I met along the way because they really helped me through this experience. I'll start with Jeremy and Lexi. On my first day, they were the first 2 people working the reception desk, and I had, like I said earlier, I was kind of afraid I wasn't going to mix well with them. And honestly, they took me in a heartbeat. No hesitation. They were super nice, very outgoing, funny people. They made their job. It could be kind of boring and monotonous standing up at reception, but they always try to make it as fun as you possibly can. And so I really appreciated that because they helped bring me in. The next person I want to talk about is Robbie. He wasn't as much as an outgoing person like they were, but he was one of the ones who really mentored me and helped me learn what I'm supposed to do and how to do it properly and most efficiently, because he knew that even though this is just a school project, I don't want to waste my time, and this is something that I'm interested in, so he wanted to make sure I'm doing it right and actually learning, which I really appreciated. And then Martha is the last one. She was one of the heads in the garden, her and Ellen were, but she was back there working with me every day. And so she really helped me. She was very understanding of my ignorance of gardening, and she really helped me improve my knowledge and just helped me learn what to do. And so I really appreciate that. She was very nice about it. And she's made a big impact because she just is so passionate about gardening. I just love that characteristic about her. And so those were some of the people that I met that made a difference in this whole process. So what I learned from all this is, honestly, one of the biggest things I probably learned / improve on is the socialization, which that and just learning altogether was my main goals in this. And so I really do think I improved my social skills, being able to communicate well with others, working well with others on group projects. I really felt like I got better at that. And then also I just got to learn a lot. I really got to learn just a little. I got a little sneak peek of what it is with dealing money in the real world. And then I also got to see the volunteer side, which even though I'm not going to do anything with gardening, I still found that very nice, and I liked doing that. So for the future, I do not plan to do anything involving gardening. I'm going to be going to Maryville for the next 4 years to study accounting, and I'll go to UT for 1 year to get my master's. And so that was kind of why I wanted to get the business aspect of it, just to get some more experience in that side. So that's why I did that, because it's a lot of managing money, getting it from point A to point B. So yeah, and that's my capstone.
So we always like to hear some spiritual component if this
Right.
was, and there's not always one, I get that, I understand that. So was there some spiritual component of this for you or not?
It wasn't necessarily going and ministering to others,
Right.
which is typically what we think. It was more just, even though I wasn't directly talking to them about it, I was able to, they knew that I was a Christian, I went to CAK, and so I just got to lead through my actions, and sometimes actions speak louder than words. And so us being able to show the light of Christ through our actions is what really hits a lot of people most, and instead of just like trying to lecture them. So even though that wasn't a massive part, I still think people can see that. So
Another aspect of the spiritual component is to learn how God designed us independently. So you speak a lot about being a natural introvert, being thrown into this situation where you have to be interacting with people all the time. Did you find at the end of this time a new appreciation for your introversion, or more of a step outside of that to serve? Do you understand what I'm saying? You can have this experience and still walk away and say, okay, this is so not me because I'm so comfortable with who I am as an introvert. Or you can see that you succeeded in this, really can communicate with people. Which did you come out with?
I came out more of the side that I thought it was more of a blessing that I got put into this situation where I had to improve. And so I count it more as a blessing than anything, because it really helped me improve. And that's one of the things, that's what I really needed most. So
Did you ever get into a situation, especially working in nonprofit organizations? Sometimes there are a lot of assumptions made by the general population. Did you ever get in a conflict situation? Because I know that's typically what an introvert fears in relating to people.
not really a conflict as in me arguing with people. It was more just sometimes over the phone, or like with specific people of different ethnicities, it was hard to understand what they were saying, especially over the phone. That was one of the big things that's kind of difficult, and so that kind of gets me very anxious and kind of freaks me out a little bit. So, but that was really the only thing that kind of like made me uncomfortable. But
Very good. Take you out of your comfort zone.
yes, ma'am.
So I want to commend you, because a lot of folks, it would have been just easy to do pilot. It's a natural. You've got a lot of, your dad's got a lot of time there.
Sir.
So I do want to commend you for not, for whatever reason, you said you kind of just felt inwardly it wasn't the thing to do. So that's a big step, because most people would just say, I got an easy one, I'm going to do this easy thing. This is the Y on North Shore?
Yes,
Is
sir.
that right?
The Davis Family Y. It's just literally a minute down the road from the Cove.
Okay, yeah, no, that's what I thought. So did you learn anything about the Y that you didn't know before?
I didn't know that they did the stuff with all the food banks, because typically throughout the school year, especially, I go to the West Side Y because I go work out with a friend, and so that's kind of between both of us. So that's where I would typically go, and they don't have a garden there. And so going to the Davis Y, I'd only been there a few times. Seeing the garden is something I didn't expect at all, and especially like the immensity of it, or like the enormity. It's a lot bigger than I thought it would be, and just I didn't know they did all that with the food banks throughout Knoxville. So that was one thing that really like stuck out to me, because otherwise I knew they were like nonprofit and I knew what was there, but minus that. So that was kind of what shocked me.
That's a relatively new part of the Y. We were going there when we first moved here. It's a new Y to begin with, but when I heard they had a garden, I thought that was awesome. I had no idea that they were doing
Yeah, I didn't
supporting
either.
food banks through that. That's great.
Yeah.
Who
It's awesome.
typically takes care of the garden? Is it
Uh,
volunteer or staff members?
There are two heads, Ellen and Martha. They kind of run the whole thing, but they constantly bring in volunteers. There was Miss Diana, would come in and she would help volunteer sometimes when I was there, and sometimes over the weekends they'll have bigger group efforts where they'll get a lot of people to come volunteer, and they'll just really knock a lot of things out.
That's what I wondered, if we have teams going over there. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Would you change anything? Anything you'd change?
Oh. No, honestly, I wouldn't. I loved it for what it was. Even though sometimes I was a little nervous going into it, I did enjoy the experience of getting both aspects.